we use the caustic gesso to abstract, right? To sort of abstract the detail, to add extra flowers, right? And to create this sort of other branch, right? With the gesso. I'm going to work with the gesso again today on the panel also, and I'm going to use the heat to both burn the wood and heat up the gesso. So that's a lot. That's a lot. We got a very busy day here today. Okay. So I'm going to start, I'm going to actually reverse my plan. I'm sorry to reverse my plan, but I'm going to reverse my plan. And I'm going to do the poured piece first. Is anybody having it's just a little bit easier for me in terms of my table setup. So let me talk a little bit about my palette. Also, I think I'm going to try to use the table. I'm going to switch to the tabletop view if I can. Okay. So here's my tabletop view. All right. And here's my palette. So these are things I have on my palette. I'm going to try not to wax my laptop here totally. So. All right. So I use these loaf pans, right? And these just have wax medium in them. And all my brushes are sitting in what I call mud. So I don't use soy wax or slick wax to clean my encaustic brushes. I use mud. And so this is an example of my mud, right? And then basically what happens is that I've literally like created my own paint by what's come off of my brushes. So I must be using a lot of colors, either a lot of greens, right? But I've been consistently making green mud now for a while. There was a time when I was making purple mud and really beautiful brown mud, like really good brown, like not ugly brown, like beautiful brown, like you know, like coffee, cafe au lait brown or burgundy brown. Lately, all I've been making is green. So I don't know what, but I guess I like green. I don't know. So anyway, I can now paint with this, right? So once the wax hardens, you can extract it from the loaf pan and then you could paint with it, right? So it's going to be translucent, and I use it as a mixing color. So it's not going to be a very strong color. It's not going to be opaque. It's going to be translucent, and it's going to be great for mixing with. So I keep all my muds. And so like at the end of the day today, like this mud, I think you guys might or might not be able to see this color, but this color is a little less green. And can you do me a favor and grab me some scraps of paper from over there? So I always like to keep a little bit of extra paper around the studio. And what that extra paper does is it allows me to test run my brushes, okay? So cleaning your brushes and knowing what's in your brushes before you paint on your, just the scraps next to the swan, all like a whole handful of paper. So when I tear my paper, I try, thank you. Also, can you do me a huge favor? In my car, in my red bag, there's my protein shakey thing, my organ. Can you grab me that so I can drink it? Okay. So like, here's a bunch of scraps of white paper, right? So let's just give it a test run of this is what my mud looks like right now, right? So can everybody see, like that's the color. Oh wait, I'm just trying to get, that's the color of my mud, right? It's not clear. It's not dark brown. It's still semi-translucent, but it's not like clean, right? It's not, right? So this is what the green one looks like, right? So it's kind of actually like a pretty, it's still translucent. And you can see too, there's something in my brush, right? So there's like purple in my brush, right? And a little bit of green, but that's like a nice color. Like it's just kind of, you know, it's soft and it's still, my point is that it's still very translucent, right? So that's like really what I like. I mean, I definitely paint in opaque layers at times. It's just nice to know what you got. So keep your little scraps of paper around. Also paper towels, right? So the way that I clean my brushes is I stick them in this mud pan. And then I might rinse them out on the sides. And for those of you that already know about this, I'm sorry, I'll go through it quickly. And for those of you that are not as familiar with cleaning brushes and stuff, you're more than welcome to contact me later because this stuff is important. And creating a consistent like workflow for your studio is also important, you know, that you do it kind of the same and that you're practicing and you feel confident. So I tend to use the paper towel. And then if you really want to clean it, you can fold the paper towel over the brushes and squeeze it. And it is a little hot. Like my contact right here was a little bit warm, right? But I'm not too warm. I'm sorry. Wait. Oh, I'm breaking it. I'm going to break it. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to move it out. I don't want to.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, flipped. Oh, that was good. I don't know why.
That's good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but okay. So now I technically have a nice, clean Hake brush. Okay. So also I want everybody to kind of notice now that I know it's clean too, I can stick it right. This is wax medium and this is wax medium. This is wax medium. This is wax medium. So this is the wax medium that I'm using. I'm using the 5. I buy them in the 5-pound jar, or they also sell the 2.5 pound. This is made by Encausticos, right? And Encausticos comes from Fine Art Store in Rochester, New York. R&F also makes wax medium, right? So I'm just going to go ahead. So, and wax medium is, oh, here. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so Rebecca has R&F wax medium, right? So Encausticos and R&F are 2 manufacturers. And this is kind of fun too, but here, I'm going to do it on the white paper. Can you move that light? Seems like it's maybe a little bit, I don't know. I think that, let's see if we can tell. So I honestly have to tell you that I've been painting for so long with encaustics, but I used to feel, like R&F's was whiter, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think that they look exactly the same. Do they not look exactly the same? You guys see? I think they look exactly
they do.
the same. Okay, so one is not more yellow than the other, but the yellowness comes from the Damar resin, right? But I don't even notice the yellow. And also I know that if I want something bright white, I just am going to paint with bright white. I'm going to paint with bright white encaustic or bright white pigment stick. Okay, so I'm not even going to ever worry or rely on my wax being white, right? I am going to focus on the wax at times being translucent, right? Versus being opaque, right? And everybody is good with the meanings of those words, right? And so the more wax medium you add to the encaustic paint, the more translucent it becomes, right? So if you kind of, just think about like pure water, painting with pure water, which, believe it or not, artists do that. And what happens when they're painting with pure water is the only thing that they're noticing is the texture that the water is creating in reaction to the surface that you're painting on, right? So it's just the most simple, purest way to paint, right? Just by sort of action reaction. And there is a lot to be said for that with encaustic medium. You can absolutely just paint with encaustic medium. Like you could paint 10 layers of just encaustic medium. There is no reason that you would ever even have to add a color, okay? Please don't feel like one thing has to lead to another. You need to listen to your own intuition and your own sort of gut feeling about how much you're adding and sort of what you want to add. And these are all like, there's no have tos, right? I just can't emphasize enough. You could strictly paint with wax medium, right? Also, where you decide to add the color is also really interesting. You could decide to add, yes?
I have a question. What is the difference between the wax medium and the one that has the Dahmer? Is that, am I saying that right? The Dahmer added to it, resin?
I'm going to type this to everybody right now. Wax medium is beeswax and Damar resin, okay? That's what wax medium is, okay? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Wax medium is beeswax plus Damar resin. And what the resin does, everybody, is the resin acts as a preservative. So very similar to, it prevents the beeswax from blooming, okay? And blooming is the process of extracting moisture, right? And because you have to remember that wax is organic, right? And everything that's organic has water in it, right? So even us humans, right? We're mostly water, okay? So very important to remember. So wax is also water. Even though it's hard, it has water in it. So the resin acts as a hardener and a preservative, okay? And then when you start using encaustic paints, right? These red, these red guys, the red guys, where are they? The red, wait, you have to remind, I know. I can't get it. Okay, these red guys, these are encaustic paints, right? So these are Damar resin, wax, and pigment, right? So that's when we transition to encaustic paints, okay? And they come in every freaking color under the sun, right? So because encaustic manufacturers usually are artists also. So encaustic paint, right, is the pigment, the wax, and the resin, right? So, and then every paint company really makes up their own mixture, okay? So I have 3 types of encaustic paint. I have Miles Conrad, I have R&F, and I have Encausticos, right? And each of those 3 companies, right, they have slightly different types of mixtures on how they make their paint. So for example, the Miles Conrad is always very translucent and his colors are very pretty, like very different, very sort of like pastel-y, not like Florida pastels, but more like New Orleans pastels or Western pastels, not bright, or they're mixtures of colors. R&F's paints are just beyond, I just love a lot of them, the colors, sort of overwhelming how great they are. There are definitely some I'll mention today that I like more than others, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an R&F color that I didn't like, except I don't like the Mars colors, like Mars red or I don't like the Mars colors, but I also personally am not a cadmium color person. Even when I was an oil painter, I'm not into cadmium. So I guess there are certain paints that I don't love. And then Encausticos, they make these cool, they're fun to work with because they make these small guys, right? So they make these little sticks and they're affordable. So you can buy them in sets of 3. They also make wax snaps, which are cute. So they come like candy bars, you guys. This is like a wax snap. And it comes in a thing of 4. So it comes in like 4, like Hershey's chocolate, right? So you just snap it off and then you just rub it on to paint with it, right? So it's literally like if you had a very expensive like makeup, like if you went and bought, a really expensive Bobbi Brown eyeshadow, you're not going to like use that in a couple weeks, right? That Bobbi Brown eyeshadow, you're going to use that for a couple years. Okay. So same thing with these paints, you guys, unless you're going like really big. And even when I went really big, I ended up using just a lot of like medium. Like I ended up using probably, I'm going to say like $500 of medium or $600 of medium, not $600 worth of paint. Do you guys understand the difference? Okay. And there's more than one way to get color. And that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. Okay. So lots of ways to add color to these photographs. Okay. And I just want to be clear, kind of going back, that I really don't recommend that anybody work with color photographs to start out with, because I feel like you're just boxing yourself in to color possibilities. I think you're just really limiting yourself as to what you can do with your inspiration and your color and caustic color by using a color photograph. Okay, so I never ever really use a color photograph unless that color photograph is super monochromatic, meaning like all blue and gray or all like yellow and gray, right? Also, we can talk about this a little bit today, but blacks are definitely harder to work with photo encaustics than whites. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today too. Like putting wax over black is going to be a challenge, right? So in a weird way, at some point when you put the wax over the black, you're going to need to add black. You're going to need to add black paint or black wax to sort of get rid of the fact that they're not, that they're contrasting each other. Okay, so I'll explain a little bit about that too. And I'm going to talk when we go to the big one about like, or I'll talk all day about it. I'm going to talk about when to go light and when to go dark, right? Okay. Any questions? Oh, and let me go through all my brushes real quick. Okay, so my palette, I have a couple of these loaf pans. Also things that you could use smaller loaf pans, right? You could use muffin dishes. Can you hand me the smaller loaf pan? Right, so you could use a smaller loaf pan. You could also use a little tin. And sometimes they sell and cost it, yeah, right. So you can use like these, right? You could use any, right? So, and then what's really cool is that if I make a color like in here, I could put it on the hot plate to melt, but then I could just take it off and I can let that wax harden and then I can pop it out, right? So then I can have it like, right, I made a new paint, right? So you can be making your own paints all the time, right? You could be making, you know, shades of colors that you like. You can be making and keeping them and then remelting them down, right? So you can always reuse your wax, which is so cool because you're never wasting it. Theoretically, you should never be wasting your paint, okay? If you're painting right off the palette, like I do, I just kind of make it a point not to put more on my palette than I'm gonna paint. And I'm kind of like a little bit stingy. I'll just keep on painting till I use up all my paint, right? I tend not to like to walk away from a palette covered with wax. So I'll just think of something else I can paint and just like put it somewhere, right? So that I don't waste it. Okay, this is actually one of my muds and that's really pretty. It's like totally translucent purple. And I don't know why I'm not making more purple. I have to think more consciously about making purple mud, but anyway. Okay, so my brushes. So this is a 2-inch Hake brush. This is a 3-inch wood staining brush. Okay, so this comes from the hardware store, right? And I like these brushes because the bristles are shorter, right? And it's just a different tool. It acts differently. It acts differently. So it's stiffer, right? You can tell I can like stand up on it and it's just going to give me a different brush stroke. Also, they come in different variables of bristle length. So you could leave them super uneven, which will give you a lot of texture, or I trim mine. I literally give them a haircut, you guys. So if you feel like your bristles are too long, you can always trim them with scissors and give them a haircut. Okay, so, and these come in half inch, 1 inch, 2, right? So all these brushes come in different sizes. These are my big guys, and I don't need all of them in my wax right now. So these are my big guys. These are my 4-inch brushes, right? So these are Hockeys and they're 4-inch brushes. So the reason that I like the big brushes is that I can go, they pick up more wax and they can go longer and smoother, right? So we're going to talk about what smooth means versus textured, right? So this one broke, but I still really, really love this brush. I don't know. I love it even more because it broke, but okay. So I'm just going to use this 4-inch one. So this is an R&F 4-inch Hockey brush. Did you guys notice too? Some of the Hockeys, you'll notice that the bristles are actually longer. So that's going to make a difference too on how it acts, right? So it's going to have more bendability and it's probably going to pick up, the longer the bristles, the more wax it'll pick up. All right. So this one's clean. Oh, I don't even know if that one's clean, but okay. And we'll use one 4-inch. Now I had another 1-inch. Are you guys, any questions on brushes? I mean, they come, it depends where you're ordering them from, but I mean, I have so many brushes here. And remember too, like these are cute. Like, does anybody use these?
Yes.
Okay, so these are adorable. They're like really, so some encaustic artists too, you guys, they will have one pan for yellow. They will have a yellow brush and then like that'll be it. That'll be it for yellow, right? So that'll be yellow. They'll be like, oh, that's yellow. And then they'll have one for red. And they're like, okay, this is red, right? So this is my red tin. I'm going to paint with red today. I don't paint like that. So this is my, oh wait, I just want to see, this is my supply table, right? So this is how I paint, okay? So all of my art supplies are over there.
Out.
And I was able to this year negotiate like a little bit of my rainbow. So I know that like these are all my red and orange colors, right? These are all my brown. So that helped me a lot, like, you know, rainbow tizing. And then I can get moody, you know, I could get more specific and I could go, okay, wait, I want to focus on orange, right? So I could just line up my oranges and then also kind of start to think about my accent, like what am I going to mix them with, right? I just have a tendency to mix like 3 to 4 colors together. I don't ever like to go just one color off the stick. So like if I was going to use pink, I would probably like take this pink, but then I would take a lighter accent color, maybe even a little bit of a white, and then I might take like a dark, like either I might give it a brown tone, right? So that would be my pink, right? Sort of the combination of those four, right? But anyway, so you'll start to collect paint, trust me, because, you know, whether you're just like, you know, I mean, having a bad day and you feel like you need to buy something cute, you buy yourself a nice color, like you should treat yourself, right? Because it's fun to have a lot of art supplies. Also, if you guys look down the table, that end down there is masking tape, watercolors, chalk pastels, watercolors, then all the encaustics, then the pigment sticks, the brushes, you know, some string, some scissors, my tools, right? So now my pigment sticks are getting old. Pigment sticks, I mean, I need about, you know, $1,000 worth of new pigment sticks. So that would be a good day, right? So I'm waiting for one of these paintings to sell so I can buy all new pigment sticks. But we're doing okay. We're doing good. All right.
Leah,
Yes.
how do you know when the pigment sticks are too old? How long do they last?
Oh, they're not too old. They just get too small.
Oh,
Oh no.
All right.
Oh no. Oh no. We do not retire a pigment stick. Oh no.
Okay,
No, no,
just
no.
checking.
Oh no. Oh no. Here. Here, I'll show you my retirees who I would never even get rid of. They do not leave me until I've like licked out the inside of the paper. But they just go away. I mean, you just use them up. They just go
Okay.
away. I mean, and this is what I do with them. Like this is my retiree box. So like even this, I would still use it,
Absolutely.
right? Like
Leah, how do you, Leah, how
Yeah.
do you, if the label comes off the pigment stick,
yeah.
how can you tell, how do you tell the color? Because I've noticed that the labels are starting to move, and I think, oh my, how am I going to know if this is that blue or this blue? Because I can't.
Okay, so that's a really good question, Bonnie. I love Bonnie. I can tell your voice. So you could do the rainbow like I had on the table where you could like order them, and really you just have to get it to come out. So yeah, it needs to be like closer to me. I can't work over there. So what I would do is just keep the white paper around, and just test it. Like, right? I mean, you just stick your finger in there and you test it. If you wanted to add masking tape and Sharpie to them, you could relabel them, right? And I think what you're talking about specifically is like, how do you remember what name the color is if you like it?
Yes.
You want to reorder it. So
Yes.
you could keep copies of your receipts of what you have ordered, and you could take the pigment stick when you first buy it and put a little bit of the paint next to the name that you bought it.
Okay.
Also, you could request a color chart from RNF, and they will send you a color chart. They send a big poster. It has all their colors on it, and they will gladly give that to you because you have to remind these people that you're the customer and that they need to give you stuff, right? Like, give me the color chart, give me samples, give like whatever. Right. But these, I don't let any of these go because I know if I add oil to this, right? So these pigment sticks are made also by RNF, and they are so awesome. You can leave it over there. The pigment sticks are made with beeswax, oil, and pigment. So they're like lipsticks, right? They can go on the wax or in the wax. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate that today in the wax. Okay, so some of you might decide that you are much more fond of painting with pigment sticks and encaustic medium as a combination, and not so much with actual encaustic paint, right? And does anybody know why that might be easier? Why might that be easier?
You can wipe it off.
Right, it's more blendable, right?
They blend nice.
Right, it's more malleable, it's easier to move around, right? It's also you don't need heat, right? You don't have to have heat to use the pigment stick, right? Also, it's not transforming. It's not physically shifting from warm to cool, right? While you're working with it. It also does not have mass, right? So it doesn't have texture. It's generally smooth, okay? So the only time that it actually can really have any texture is when you put it over a wax texture, okay? So wax to me in my studio is what I call like the heavy hitter. Like wax is the big guy, the big guns, right? And the pigment sticks are kind of like more flexible, like wear every day, like can do everything, like can transform, can reach from, it can be opaque, but they can also really do a lot that's translucent. Okay, so let me start.
And then how do you, sorry, Leah, but how do you deal with the ratio issue between the oil and the wax? Do you ever, are you watching how much pigment stick you're using, how much wax, so you're not using too much oil to the wax to make it unstable? Or do you bother about that at all?
That's a good question. I've never had a situation where my pigment stick caused my wax to be unstable. So I think that would have to be if you add more, if you added more extender. Did you actually have a situation that you can speak about where that happened to you? Or is it
No,
just,
but you know, RNF teaches that what is it, 70% ratio of one to the other, and you can't do more. And it's like there's some kind of, you know, rule to what works best. And I don't know. So, because I really like to work with the pigment sticks.
Me too, me
You know,
too.
and I usually work with them fairly thin layers. So
me too.
I don't think. Okay, so
Okay, so I think that you would have to be like excessively using the extender, which is just pure wax and oils, and you'd have to be like, or that you added a bunch of additional oil to
okay.
thin it, and then you would have to, it would just have to be like such a slick surface. I think 70% of oil is a lot of oil. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's a lot of oil. I mean, I get it that would not work. That would like.
I think it's the wax to oil. You need to have 70% wax.
Oh, I thought you were saying.
I don't know.
70.
It's on their website. You know, I've been there a few times.
That makes sense. 70% wax to 30% pigment stick. That makes sense. So let's just,
Yes,
that makes sense. I mean, that seems totally reasonable, and that's how I'm going to teach you how to do it today.
Okay.
I have in parts. I'm going to talk about how I fuse pigment sticks into the wax. So I'm trying to think, if I put a lot of pigment stick on top of wax and I heat it up, I'm trying to think about the percentage of oil to wax in that situation, but I can't really, I don't know how to simulate it mathematically. So I'll show you. And, you know, I think again, they really want people, they want to train for success, right? So they want their clients to use their products safely, right? So that they feel successful. But it makes sense when you're mixing like hard, when you're mixing resins and oils are hard to soft or slick to solid, you know, that the proportions are practical, right? And if they are unpractical, then they're going to be unsafe, and you're going to see it right away. I would think that if you have too much oil, you're going to see it right away. Do you know what I'm saying? And you can always lift oil by using paper towels or scraping back, right? If you feel like you've gotten too oily for the wax to behave, right? You can always use a paper towel and wipe it off.
Right.
I think there's been times where I feel like I've been on the oily side. And to me, when I go oily like that on top of wax, then I just leave it. I just know I'm not going to add another layer of wax on there. I've kind of, you know what I'm saying? And I'll demonstrate that. So I think if you lay the wax down and then you put the pigment sticks on top, but you get really oily for whatever reason you need oily to get the you know, the look that you want, then you just let it dry. Don't put wax on top of it. But it's fine as a surface coat. That would be my answer to that, right?
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, you can go as oily as you want on top, but you're just not going to put any more encaustic medium over that. It has to be a top coat.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to build an unstable structure, right? Like, you want to be building your wax so that it lasts, and then your top coat can be as oily as you freaking want, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. All right. So with that said, let me still start with this pour. So this is kind of a fun technique, and I use it a lot. Like I had a show, it must have been last year. And I also did a residency at the Encaustic Castle with Patricia Sedgebrook. And when my pieces get really big, I like there to be a variety of textures, right? So I don't want the whole piece to be textured, and I don't want the whole piece to be smooth. So I kind of have gotten to the point where I like to pour an area and then brush areas too. So I'm just going to demonstrate the pour process And I just have this little cookie sheet, right? And I'm working on like little baby pieces. This one baby piece has paper hanging out over the edge. It's fine. I'm just gonna leave it for argument's sake. But the other piece, I'm gonna go ahead and really sand it, right? And remember how we talked about sandpaper yesterday? We talked about sandpaper as being like a burning and dodging tool, or really a dodging tool, right? I mean, you can't really burn with sandpaper because you're totally just removing ink, right? So burning, you have to add black, right? And dodging, you're removing ink. So you're lightening or you're texturizing, right? So you're also making a ton of paper dust, right? Which you don't want in the wax, of course. So we're gonna wipe that off. But the other thing is when you're gonna pour is you kind of want to think about the wax being like having a nice journey, right? Having a nice trip. So making it have a more easy flow is going to be like smoothing out these edges so that it can go down and roll over and out, okay? And when I pour big pieces, I might just pour a section of the piece. So if you look at a painting that I did like last year called Awakening, I literally poured in the center over the model's face because I really felt like I wanted there to be a window, a clear, smooth window into the figure. And then I wanted all of the texture and chaos to kind of be around that. Okay, so smooth for me represents calm, tranquil, sweet. Those are sort of the adjectives that I give to smooth. Okay, and texture is chaotic, frenetic, moving, distressed, right? So that's how I sort of classify, right? My yin and yang, right? So when I'm painting, I'm thinking specifically about where I want it to be smooth, that's calm, and where I want it to be textured, that's like active, integrated, pulsating, riled up, whatever words you want to use. Okay. So these are going to be nice, smooth, calm pieces. Just for argument's sake, right? At any time with these black and whites, I can hand color them. I can hand color these photos before I put the wax on. I can hand color them with watercolors, with woody crayons, with colored pencils, or chalk pastel. Okay, so these are all things that I could possibly do with these flowers. You could probably also hand color them with Cara or even oil pastels. So I'm just gonna go for I'm just addicted to this color. I just am so in love with this. I could just like stare at this all day. Okay, because I don't know why, but they've just like rocked these colors. They're just so pretty. So say I wanted to, oh, here we go. Say I just wanted to add like a touch of underpainting, right? And how can you resist like painting these flowers, right? I mean, and this is the William Turner, right? So I could have done this. I could have done this with watercolor and let it dry. I of course, don't want to wax something that's wet. Do not wax something that's wet. Not a good idea. That will not work out. That's a little bit like what you were talking about being too oily, right? So being too wet. Okay, so I mean, how pretty is that? I mean, honestly, just hand painting black and whites just makes me so happy. I mean, like really, I'm so easy to please. And these colors are just I can't stand them. They're so pretty.
So William Turner will accept watercolor and pastels?
Well, it's not really loving these. I mean, I'm not getting a smooth. This is going on chunky to say the least. I mean, it's not really, it's really not blending that well, but I'm just, it's okay. It's okay. It would be much better on a smoother paper because the tooth of this paper is not that great, but I just wanted to kind of illustrate that. I don't want to paint it with watercolors right now just because I don't have the time to let it dry in front of you, but you absolutely could have done a coat of watercolors. I actually do have, the other thing you can do with, and these are just like, this is like very, I mean, these are colored pencils, right? So definitely the colored pencils, right? Right? Colored pencils?
Mhm.
I'm just asking because I have a whole roll of William Turner that I can't figure out what to do with.
Oh, I think it's wonderful for watercolor. Beautiful. Or staining with like walnut ink. But like, look how pretty
Yeah.
that is. Look how pretty with that, just that little green, right? And the stem. I mean, so now I could also have some fun here, right? Because this is like I could hand color this lace, right? So this is just you and how much detail work you want to do, you know, but this could be really beautiful. These are colored pencils. This is working out great. These are just regular colored pencils on the William Turner paper, right? I mean,
What about the, Leah, what about the pan pastels?
I don't love the pan pastels for this because I find pan pastels don't do, this is what I call fine line work. This is fine line work. And I don't, that's not what I think about when I think about pan pastels. I think about blending and I think about stenciling and shading or toning with pan pastels. Right now I'm focusing on this sort of like fine line work. So I'm gonna think colored pencils, tiny little watercolor brush. I'm thinking about an exact science here, right? I'm not blending. Pan pastels for me are blenders. Okay, so that's fun.
Can you put the pastel down, the pan pastel before the wax, or do you wait after the wax?
I put the pan pastel after the wax, but these,
Gotcha.
because I don't, but you could, I mean, there's no reason, like these are basically pan pastels. The new pastels, this box, they're basically pan pastels. They're just pressed into, these sticks. They're right. They're heavy pressured into these sticks. But I like the sticks because I like the edge, right?
Yeah.
Like, see how I can kind of, I just like the edge. I like to draw with that edge. All right. So I'm going to let these go for now. So I like these really pale yellows in here. They're cute. I don't know if you can see them like well enough, but they're sweet, right? They're sweet. I mean, they're just very gentle and they're right. The other thing I could do right now, which is also something that I like to do, if I can find it. What the heck? All right. Oh, I can't write that. So outside line, right? Dark. So I always like to make, right? So this is like adding contrast. So this is not black, which is nice. It's actually gray. But do you see how I'm like going in? Now, what did that do to the white flower, right? When you go dark around the outside edge, what did it do to the white flower? It made it what?
Yeah, popped it right out there.
Right. And it's making these negative spaces, right? So I really got excited, you know, I think it was maybe last year or the year before when I really just had an epiphany with the art. I was like, holy shit. I was like, it's the outside line that's like so beautiful to the shape, right? Not just the shape itself, right? So like here, it's like this outside line is beautiful. And then the nice thing about these pastels is that I can rub them with my finger, right? And I could soften that line from being a hard line to having like emotion, right? And being like fuzzy. Okay, so I like that. I like how this became more poppy and it's just a cool shape. All right, so now I'm gonna pour it. Now I'm a little concerned. So this is what's coming off of it, right? With these pastels. So I'm a little concerned that it's gonna get really tone up my wax. So I'm gonna actually take a little bit of this off. I'm just gonna go back and because I don't want the wax to be blue or blue-gray, right? So I'm gonna rub it in a little bit and it's kind of getting pretty. I'm like, just gonna rub it in. All right, get a little carried away there with that.
Leah, do you use a fixative? Like, do you fix the
I
pastels?
don't use spray. No, I don't use spray fixatives. No, and I would never use a spray fixative under a wax. Nope. But I just rubbed it off. Really, I just rubbed it in and rubbed it off. So I just taught a workshop with Marcy Hubbard, and we did figurative drawing with charcoal. So when she put the encaustic medium over the charcoal drawing, she put it, one coat, clean the brush, one coat, clean the brush, one coat, clean the brush. And yeah, the charcoal ran, but it was sort of beautiful. Now, she did do a test on it. And what she tested was if she soaked the drawing with the charcoal in it in water and then dried it and then waxed it, the charcoal did not run.
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
Huh.
But do you want to do that? Like, that's a lot. That's like,
Yeah,
that's
that's a lot of
literally
work.
like, that's a lot of work, right? So that's like drawing with charcoal, shading it, drawing over the photo. Now, I wonder if you sprayed it with a spray bottle of water and just let it dry. I think that would be equal to soaking it, because I think it's just something about the moisture weighing down the charcoal to the paper without adding a fixative. Like, I just wouldn't want to add a chemical layer in between the paper and the wax. But water is not a chemical, and water is in the wax already. So I feel like if you actually just took a spray bottle and misted it and then let it dry overnight and then waxed it, I think that would be that would be my choice. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna pour. All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna take this pan. It's a little hot. I'm just gonna tough it. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna go center, corner. Now, there's no reason that I could stop there. You don't have to pour the whole thing, right? It doesn't have anything to do with like, it doesn't have anything to do with how well the wax will stick or stay on the piece if you do the whole thing or you do half, right? So you could honestly just dip it too, right? Why could you not just, dip it flat into the wax and pull it up, right? So the idea really in pouring is just being able to get a totally smooth, like smooth surface. Okay, so it's as much like glass or frosty glass as you're going to be able to achieve. I still think pouring is better than brushing, scraping, fusing, brushing, scraping, fusing, brushing. I just think it's a different look, and I've always used it. It was actually like the first thing I did with wax and photography. So it always has a special place in my heart, pouring. It will now kind of cloud up, right? There is one other thing I can mention, and not to confuse you, but they do also sell a product called bleached wax, right? Which has no DeMar resin in it. And if you want to really pour larger pieces and you want a little bit more clarity and whiteness in the wax, you could do a 50-50 mixture of wax medium to bleached beeswax. Do not use pharmaceutical grade white wax, because that has the most water of all the waxes, of course, because it's the purest of the natural form of beeswax, right? Okay, so technically this is a palette knife, but I can like start to sort of smooth out any imperfections. And then I'm just gonna set it to the side, and this will clear. Okay, so this is hot. It's like 200 degrees right now. Okay, so I'm gonna set it aside and it will clear. Okay, so let's see how this one does. So you can tell too, like this is wax medium I'm pouring with today. And you can see that it's even like just all by itself. It's not totally translucent by any means, and it's not white, right? So that's just the nature of the beast. That's just what it is. Okay, so again, like you can definitely try the bleached beeswax, also sold by Fine Art Store. You can buy, and you could just mix a little bit, 50-50 or 30-70 into your medium and then pour, right? And it's totally fine. It will mix well. It's totally fine. Don't use straight bleached beeswax though. And don't, but mixtures are good. You can always experiment with mixtures of bleached to medium. All right, I'm gonna do one more. All right. Also, you should probably, I have a level, but you should probably level the piece. For whatever reason, that looked like it was sloping downhill. Definitely sloping downhill. I think my whole studio slopes downhill. So that's, no, you can definitely see it sloping downhill because it's also, I can see which way it's running. But this one looks really beautiful. Sorry about
That's
that.
gorgeous.
Isn't that just so, wait, I'm sorry about the lighting. Hold on. Is that better?
Yeah.
I mean, and so like, and then I moved it, right? So when I moved it, I got a reaction, right? So I got this cool little ridge, but it's fine because it's like right at the same place where that lace was, right? So I'm totally fine with it. So I love this palette knife, everybody. And like, so there's no reason too why you couldn't use this and like sculpt with it, right? Or like, you know, I mean, it's when it's warm like this, it's so fun. Like, look, I mean, even just in the tray, like, right? So this could be a really beautiful technique too, that kind of, you know, goes on here. Right? I mean, right? I mean, now that's not smooth anymore, but I couldn't resist showing you that. I mean, right? But it's beautiful, and then it will harden. Now I can totally smooth that. Also, I got that cool little ridge because I moved the tray to show you guys, but that's all right. All right, so now I'm gonna scrape off the edges.
Leah,
Okay,
can
yeah.
you pour over, say you have a piece and you've scraped it and you've got some unevenness in it from the scraping it. Can you then use this technique to sort of smooth it all together?
Yes, you can definitely smooth. You can definitely pour over pre-existing wax pieces. There was a time about a year or two ago where I really wanted to sort of maximize my depth in the artwork. And so I actually took objects like this. So this is about 3/4 inches thick. I laid it on the piece and I filled it. Like I filled it. And then I moved it and I filled it. Right. So that's, I mean, so that's you know, a relief coming out of wax, a solid form. And I poured into it. It was really beautiful. I mean, again, like the more time you spend, right? And the more techniques you try that you like, then guess what? Your brain is going to go, oh, well, what else can I do? Right. And that's really what, if I could evoke anything in you, you know, all of you through my teachings and my sharing and my encouragement and my, you know, intuitive process is like, you know, like what else could you do with it? Like technically, could I take these shavings, you know, and use the heat gun and like, you know, build off of this, right? Like you're always kind of at that, like, what else can I do, you know? And I'm going to tell you, I know a couple encaustic artists who've actually bought some candy molds. You guys, candy molds. You know, this is a cookie frame, right? This is a cooking candy molds. Put wax, encaustic wax and candy molds, made these beautiful jewel-like beady things, and then guess what? Fuse them right in there. Hello, 3D artwork. I mean, how beautiful is that? And you can make little flowers, right? So just like I popped the little flowers like in Rebecca's hair, right? And then with the collage, like I popped these little flowers. What if I had little encaustic 3D flowers, right? In multiple colors that I just like fused in there, right? How cool would that be? So, right? So definitely try the layering. And if you have an area that you can't smooth, you can definitely pour over it. You might find yourself wondering how to integrate those two layers after the fact, or you might just like love it straight out of the gate. You know, you got to try it. And if you don't love it, what do you do, Bonnie?
You scrape.
Right, you use the heating and scraping back, right, to get back to some type of control.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's a couple things we can do now with these pieces. I almost feel like I want this like behind. I don't know. Is that better? All right, so there's a couple things we can do now with these two pieces. And they're still cooling, right? But so, and they have like a little bit of a greenish yellow tint to them, right? So I can start to scrape them back. This is the palette knife, right? And they're warm, right? So that's one way to scrape. This one on my left is definitely smoother. This is the one I did the other technique on. So for when I work on wood, I like to scrape with a razor blade. So this goes back to, you know, our camera sensibilities. So if I'm scraping in the center right here, as I'm thinning the wax, I'm making the image sharper. Okay. So I really want to, actually, I woke up like really early in the morning, I think at like 5 a.m. And I literally told myself, I said, make sure you tell them about depth of field and the connections between wax and photography. And I was like, all right, Leah, go back to bed. Okay. So the thicker the wax, right? The thicker the wax, the more out of focus, just like we did yesterday with the wax paper. So basically I'm going in here in like an eyeball shape, right? You could pick any shape you wanted, right? But I'm just picking an eyeball. So can you see how I'm thinning the wax in the center? I'm thinning the wax in the center, and you can't tell from the top, but if you ran your hand over it, it's going to go like this, vroom, 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 right? It's like a sloping downhill. So from the front, nobody's going to know, but you're going to know, right? That you're getting very close to the photo in the center and you're leaving it thick on the sides. So it's just like a lens baby or shallow depth of field, right? Where this is blurry and this is sharp. Okay. And it all has to do with the thickness of the wax. Okay. So the next time you go and start working on your wax pieces, I want you to stop before you start. And I want you to look at it and I want you to go, this is what I want sharp. And this is what I want blurry. This is what I want quiet. And this is what I want busy. Okay. So I like to have all of those things in my pieces. I don't like my pieces to be all busy. I don't like them to be all quiet. I don't like them to be all in focus, and I don't like them to be all blurry. Okay. So I like there to be a flow. And I call it a weave, but you can call it whatever you want. You could call it a rhythm. You can call it a pattern. You can call it, you know, whatever it is. And you could also disagree with me. You could go, oh, no, Leah, no. I like totally smooth and only smooth, and I'm smooth all the way. And I'm going to say, okay, awesome. You do that for like 4 or 5 years and get back to me. Let me know how that's going, right? Because you change, right? And your feelings change. And also your confidence level changes and your ability to manipulate the wax changes, right? The longer you work on it. So I'm going to keep going. You might think that I'm almost there, but I'm going to go a little bit thinner. And notice I didn't use any heat. I didn't use any heat. I'm not adding heat. No heat. I don't want heat. I'm doing this with wax and a razor blade. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with this piece, right? I love it. I love how it's sharp right here, sharp right here, sharp right here, and blurry, 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 blurry. Okay. I love it. Can everybody see? You guys love it?
Yes.
It's beautiful. Okay, so we'll put that to the side. Now this one's a hot mess, right? It's a hot mess. So I can see nothing. I see nothing. It's like shit. It's like messy, 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 messy. I mean, it's cool texture, but what am I going to do? So I have to pick a spot to bring you in, right? I have to pick an area to bring you in. So I think I'm loving this little baby pink flower right here. So I think I'm just going to go for that. And I could go with another more specific tool like this guy. And I could just start digging, like, right, archaeology. I could just start digging down, right? So the point is I'm bringing back the photo by digging into the surface. But honestly, like this tool, I just don't like all these lines it's making. It's kind of ugly. It's just making like X's, and I'm seeing my flower more, but I just don't like it. So I might do this for another minute. Oh, there she is. Okay. And I'm bringing out these little baby flowers. So I think I'm going to let both the big flowers go. Now I'm going to go back to my razor blade. Now, also, if the razor blade gets all yucky, just put it on the hot plate and look, we have lots of razor blades. So just like get another one. Get another one. Okay. And then I can pop this one back off, right? So just put it on the, it's hot right now though. I'm not. So notice too, like I've been doing, you guys, please, I've been razor blading for 20 something years. And I've been razor blading pieces that were like 6 feet by 4 feet, right? So don't feel, please, it takes practice. But I'm gonna let this whole side go. I'm gonna let this bumpy side go, but I'm just, okay. And now I got my little flower. I'm happy. Okay, and I got totally blurry on the corner. I'm happy. Also, like this, I can just heal with my finger, right? I think we were talking about this a little bit yesterday. Tiny little things, I just use the friction of my finger, right? And still, I'm not using any heat, but I do like it. All right, so now I'm gonna quickly hand color these because I wanna get on to something else. All right, so I'm gonna hand color these now with pigment stick. And can you hand me a piece of wax paper? Yeah, the brown ones. So like my dry chalky pastels won't work right now. My pan pastels could work on this. So you could do pan pastels on this or pigment stick. So I'm just gonna put, I use wax paper for my pigment sticks, right? And I'm just gonna put a couple colors out here. You could also use paintbrushes, right? And to extend the pigment sticks, you can use the extender. You can use coconut oil. You can use, I like coconut oil or this is the extender stick, right? So this is what I think. Who said that thing about the RNF 70-30 thing? Who was that? I don't remember. But anyway, whoever said that.
It was me. It was Patty.
Hi, Patty. Yeah. So
Hi.
hi. So I put the extender over here, right? And if I want to, you know, but again, like I don't use any of these colors straight off the stick. So, you know, I really try to blend them. You know, I just think they're prettier together, right? And extender. Now you can, like I said, you could use the coconut oil, or you can use the extender, right? Now I would never put the extender directly on the wax. I only ever put the extender on the palette sheet. So I would never put the extender, I try to keep the extender on this, in this part, right? So that limits, I guess, the amount of extender I use. All right, so I'm getting to some cute colors here. Cuter. Again, like don't be afraid to put like blue and pink together. Like don't be afraid to put green and blue together. Yes?
Leah, is the extender just for mixing?
Yes, it's just for mix. Yeah, it's for mix. Well, it's actually for extending, like literally extending, because all of these materials have what's called like a natural consistency, right? So the extender is more oil, right? So it's oily, so it loosens it. And it's just extenders. It has maybe a little bit more oil. It also doesn't have any pigment in it, so it's just like Vaseline. It literally feels like Vaseline.
Okay, I've never used one.
Yeah, so you could, but if you don't want to buy the extender, try a little bit of coconut oil.
Yes, I have that.
Try just a little bit of coconut oil. It's very similar. Okay, so now I'm going to think about hand coloring with pigment sticks. And if you want to use, I know a lot of people that don't like to paint with their fingers. I tend to like to paint with my fingers, but you are more than welcome to paint with brushes, right? So let's just say we're painting with brushes. And so you can go on in that same, you know, sort of genre of hand coloring, right? And then you can control how you paint these flowers, what colors you paint them, right? How many colors you paint them. Like you could have just added one color here, right? Now you can paint them literally just with the brush and you can walk away and let that dry, or you can blend these colors, right? And I think it's nice because this piece is so small that I'm using the brush, right? Also, I'm kind of like thinking about the lines, right? So I could do this brush work and I can use all different size, tiny, teeny little brushes. And of course, if you're working on something bigger, you could be using bigger brushes. I can use a dry brush to blend these colors, right? And then I don't need to put anything on this. This will dry, okay? So not to fear, this will dry. Okay, now if I want to blend these colors, I could also think about, you know, highlights and shadows, right? So here's a little dark color. This is probably, I hope this isn't black, but I can't really tell. And so back to Bonnie, like the only way you can really tell what colors these are is like spread them out. So that is probably Turkish green umber, and that looks pretty black. Okay, so this is green, and this is black. So I'm not going to use the black. I'm going to use the dark green. So again, like you don't have to paint the whole thing. You know, you can try some dabbing. If I start dabbing, I can blend either with a paper towel or with the dry paintbrush, clean paintbrush, right? Clean, dry paintbrush. Also, I can blend, I can blend my lines. I can blend together on the surface. Another thing I can do here, which is really fun, is incising. Does everybody know what incising is?
Yep.
Okay, so I like to incise. So I have a couple tools that are my favorite. They are, okay, so they are a knitting needle, a yarn, a kid's yarn crochet needle, plastic, a lobster pick, right? And a pottery tool. Okay, so this is where it can start to get really interesting, is I can make marks in the surface. So I could go, you know, I mean, the easiest thing might be like little holes, right? And then remember, I have all this lace over here, right? So I could try to kind of like mirror the lace. I can change the size of the hole, right? By changing the tool. And then basically once I've created an indentation in this surface, I can impregnate it, right? And I love saying that about, especially because we're all ladies, so I can fill it, right? Fill it with something. All right, and you could do general mark making here. So let's see, over here, I'm gonna fill it with this. Look at this really pretty light blue color. Oh, need more blue. And I can kind of make the color as I go, right? Now, for those of you who are interested in fusing pigment sticks to the piece, I could take the heat gun now and I could fuse this paint in here, right? But I think I'm gonna just, right, so now I'm just gonna wipe it off. But we could do both, right? So I'm gonna wipe it off. So this is pigment stick, I'm gonna wipe it off. So what I'm looking for is to have paint in these holes and sort of white around it, right? So I've definitely got the paint in the holes, but I didn't get the white around it. So there's a couple things I can do to get the white around it. Okay, one is I could try a little bit of an extender to loosen the paint and then wipe again. Oh, that helps, right? Right, so did you see how that helped? It was like just a little juice. It like gave me a little jazz, right? Jazzy. Okay, now I'm kind of getting paint in all those lines, right? The other thing I can do is I can take my razor blade and I can lightly remove this just top surface, right? So now I have blue in the holes You guys see that?
Okay.
In the holes, right? But not on the top. I don't know. Wait, where is the light the best?
Yeah, you don't have to fuse that color to stay on the top.
No, no, you do not. No, you do not. You can just put this away and let this dry. It'll just dry. But you could, but if you fuse it, you're running the risk, you're running the risk of really blurring it. You know? All right. You do not have to. All right, I'm gonna add a little white to this flower. But I think
You don't have to fuse it? Is that what you're
no,
saying?
you do not have to fuse it. No. Nope. You can just set this aside and it will dry.
Wow. Do you spray it with anything or to seal it?
No. No, it'll just dry. It'll just dry right on the wet. It'll just dry like paint, like oil paint. It'll just act like oil paint. All right, so I think it looks pretty cute. I think it looks pretty cute. What do you guys think? A little bit more green, another color here. So like, again, I mean, this is small too. You guys have to remember how small this is, right? So I'm sorry, it's so small. I should have made one a little bit bigger.
No, I love that.
It's pretty darn cute. If you guys could see it.
It
And
is.
It's
right.
it's good to start small.
Yeah, we're gonna work our way up to bigger.
Yeah.
All right. So, and this color palette is beautiful. I mean, look at these. This color palette is beautiful. So you know, you can always kind of like put more layers on here. I'll do. You know, sometimes I just sort of start to see the flowers too. You know, and you could add flowers where there aren't flowers. Right. So that's always fun, right. You can, even though there aren't flowers in the photo, you can use the end of these brushes. Right. So that's what I do a lot is I really try to think about sort of starting with the flowers that I have, but then adding flowers from my imagination. Right. So I could add, you know, like this flower completely changed. Right now, if I add white, basically I know I can, right now I've like made a bigger flower. Right. Now this one too, I mean, this was a flower, but I kind of changed the shape of the flower. It's not really a dahlia anymore, you know? But again, these brushes are so petal-like, you know, just using the brush, right, to create this flower idea. Just the suggestion of the flower is like, you know, is a lot. I still feel like I need, this one's pretty. This one has to be like light pink though. And this one at the top, it looks more like a Gerber daisy than a dahlia, right?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't care. We're not doing botany class, right? We can make up whatever flowers we want. Now you can also make up your own flowers, right? I mean, you could just literally like make up your own imaginary shaped flowers, right? You don't have to be, and look, we can add a little bit of this blue. Right. And you can overlap these colors, right? You know, and I always say that color is like reflecting into other color. Okay. So I'm just going to put this inside.
How long does that take to dry now after you put roughly?
I would say a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the intention of not needing to fuse then is because you're not putting any other encaustic medium on top of that wax medium.
Exactly. So
Got
that's a good like if not this then type answer. If I was going to put encaustic on this, it's so wet, like it's like literally a little painting. I mean, it's like this little painting. If I put wax on it, I would just wipe that whole painting off, right? I just feel sad that you guys, I'm going to try something though. Hold on. You can't really even see it. Let me see if I can you see it better now?
It's so pretty.
Yep.
Right. So again, like all of those things that I liked about in the beginning, I still like about it. I love, look, it made like a heart shape right here. Right. It made like a little black heart right here. Right. And I mean, it's just fun. It's like, it hardly has any resemblance to what I started with. I mean, that tends to be fairly common in my work lately, but that's okay. All right, so let's do the other one though. And look, so it's kind of interesting too to put these two back
just-
together, right? It's kind of interesting to put the two back together, and they're sort of sweet now, right? I think we had it on
Mhm.
because one is like very abstracted, you know, and one is not. So, all right, so let's see what happens with the other one. So I'm going to try a couple other techniques. I feel like this blue is too strong though.
Would you take those and put them together in different, you know, on another panel and connect them somehow?
That's a wonderful idea. That's what I did. Yeah, hang on, I have to admit something. That's what I did with, yes, you absolutely could do that. So this is flat wood. You could just take wood glue. Erica, can you grab me the panels over here? Oh, Rebecca. Why did I call you Erica? Sorry, Rebecca. Is there one in there that's kind of like, yeah, just bigger? You could. I mean, you could totally. I mean, you could do the same. You could do the same one multiple times. I mean, you know, I mean, you could do 6 of these, and then, you know, like, is that what you're thinking? Like, put them back together?
Yeah, yeah, be kind of cool to do something like that.
Of course.
And wood glue, huh? Okay.
Yeah, you could just wood glue them onto another piece of wood. Of course.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do the other one real quick because I wanted to try to get to the paper piece, but it's going to be similar painting style. Okay, so let's try. Can you take a picture? Let's try fusing. So in a way, now that I look at that one, I'm like, I'm kind of missing what I loved about this one was the photo recognition, like seeing the photograph, right? And seeing more of the photograph. I mean, I really went so far from the photograph in that one, sort of to just illustrate how you can really use the paint to abstract what's underneath, or sort of like use this as a starting point and then paint off of it. But let's say that we're going to be more painterly here. So we can make this paint more translucent, right? So that's really the difference between the paint, right? Is I made that paint fairly opaque, so I kind of covered up the photo. So let's say we just make this, you know, dahlia like this light green, right? And then you can sort of really, you can just put the paint on. And also remember this one, I have like the little hand coloring underneath here. So if you look closely at it, you can see that. So like maybe this one's going to be more photorealistic. So I put the paint on and now I'm just really going to rub it off. Like, right? And I can choose them, right? So now I rubbed it off. So now the photo's coming back through, right? Right. So now I have more of like a 50-50, right? So, and I could just continue to rub it off. Now I also could use, and I know you guys, some of you have been chomping at the bit, but I could also use the pan pastels, right? And what's cool about the pan pastels is that they generally tend to be a little bit more translucent than the pigment sticks, right? And they're also dry, right? So this is a really pretty color I just made here. And did you guys see how I did that? So I went, remember when I mixed the pink with the magenta and then I added the white, right? So I always like to set myself up into thirds when I paint. So thirds, meaning like a dark shade, a light, a medium shade, and a light,
Got it.
right? Because no flower is one color, right? And then I also like to have an accent color. So this accent color is green. And why did I put green in here? Because I put green down here, right? So technically this guy needs an accent color. So it needs the pink from the upper flower. And I'm not talking about a lot of color. I'm talking about a little bit. Did you see how much of a difference that made? Right? Now they look so much more realistic. And they're just so pretty together. I have the green here, and then I really feel like I need like a light green. Like I can just do light green right here, or I could do a little bit of this blue, right? And look, that's so light, right? It's so soft, but it's mostly photographic, right? And then look, I could just rub this in, right? So the more I rub, the more of the photograph I get. Now, the only other thing I might do is a little bit, I don't love, as a little bit of darkness, right? And this is this dark green. So if I add the dark, it's just gonna make everything else pop out. And I could do it with the brush. And if I do it with the brush, I can get right up along this line. And if it's okay with you, can I just do the pan pastels on the paper? Because I just feel like these things are so small. They're really, I mean, they're really cute, but I feel like I'm painting a Fabergé egg. Like, it's not, I mean, it's fun, but it's just not that fun. Right? Okay. And then the bottom, I could do this part. I think I like it. I don't know. I think that line's too hard, but I think I like it waxy. What do you guys think? The bottom? Do you want there? It could be light at the bottom. Like it light at the bottom? Light at the bottom?
Yeah, I don't know.
I like that, yeah.
You like the light at the bottom? And it has a scratch in it, which is kind of cool. Or I could blend it. Right, so, all right. And then two, I can scratch into the, right? I can scratch it now, right? I can scratch it into the pigment stick, right? You guys see that? And I could technically like draw all these flower petals. You see that? That's pretty cool. Right? Where I'm actually like drawing into the, Erica's having some, right? Did you see how I just drew into the pigment stick? Okay. I think I'm gonna move on. Are you guys cool if I move on?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I'm sorry. I just feel like this is, it's so small. It's like teeny, it's like this teeny tiny little Victorian thing. Okay. So look, also I just totally changed the flower, right? Did you see that? So it's not a dahlia anymore. And I also messed this one up. I don't like the dark in this one, but I do kind of like the dark in this one. I don't know. All right, I'm getting too crazy. All right, I'm gonna move
That
on.
worked.
I had too much blue, right? And so this like kind of getting it just like, it's just very fine line, you know, blending. All right, let's see how those two look together. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to this one. And just for argument's sake, I'm gonna start out with the, fusing of the encaustic paint. So the first thing I have to do though, there's no wax on this piece, right? So the first thing I need to do, and I'm gonna switch back to this tabletop. Wait, oh my God, I was trying to use my computer as a touch screen. Okay, hello. Woo! I swear, it's just because your phone, you feel like you can touch. Okay. So hopefully that was fun. I'm sorry those were so little, but they were pretty. They were cute. But I'm glad they were cute. Yeah. All right. We're going. They were cute. We're done. Cute. Bye. Okay.
There's a lot of information there.
It was actually just giving me a headache trying to like look at them and like talk to you guys. I'm sorry. I just like this. All right. So here I am on this abstraction, right, that we abstracted yesterday. I have my nice masking tape, right? So remember how we did this? And just for argument's sake, like, you know, remember how right? So if I start to peel this up, remember I have this nice clean edge here. And we talked a little bit about photography, you know, sort of like respecting the industry of photography and the sort of collectability of photography. I understand beautiful archival gelatin silver prints and limited edition prints and stuff like that. So if you are interested in matting these prints, you know, keep the edge on them, right? Keep the edge on them, title them, right? You know, say it's an original work of art. You can put the ingredients on the back and you can mat them, you know, you can frame them. You can show them on mats. You can also mount them to wood if that's something that you so desire. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and follow my earlier instructions to everybody, which were, does anybody remember what I said about waxing? If you want it blurry, you're going to make it what?
Textured and heavy.
Right. Well, not necessarily, not necessarily textured, but thick, right? So think about it.
Thicker, yeah.
Right. So the thicker the wax is, the blurrier the picture. So obviously, I want it blurry here and here, right? Kind of almost like an oval circle. So I know that the best thing for me to do would be to use a big brush, right? It's going to make it smooth in the center. So I think that everybody could honestly say that they have like a focal point or a most important part of their image, whether it's a person or flowers or whatever, but especially for the flowers, like who's the star flower, right? Like where's your favorite part of the floral composition, right? So I'm just gonna reach over here for a second. These are some that are already painted. So, and it's kind of interesting too, because I don't know if anybody can tell, but there are two breasts here. There's a breast here. There's a breast here. And there's also hands here, right? So remember how I said that yesterday, that a lot of times I feel like flowers look best when they're in contact with people, whether they're in their hair, around their neck, on their chest, in their hands. I just love them that way more than I like a vase, right? So I'm always trying to think of how to get the flowers out of the vase and get them to look good. And my most common answer is with a beautiful, like a woman, right? Okay. But then I'm able to totally get rid of the woman. So you can see this is all gesso, just random brush strokes of gesso, right? Gesso, random brush strokes of gesso, and then wax. Look, even I just made a big circle with the gesso here. I mean, just totally random, just circle, big thick glob of gesso here. And then I actually put this floral stencil over a layer of wax medium, okay? Same picture, you guys, like same picture, boob, hands, right? So gesso on the hands, right? Wax medium, and then a couple floral stencils, right? And they look similar, but they don't look the same, right? And for whatever reason, this one, like there's more attention on this flower, and in this one, there's more attention on this flower, okay? Also, once you've completely abstracted them, then you can start to go, oh, do they go this way or this way, right? And that's sort of something we talked about a little bit yesterday too, is once you've started the abstraction, you're completely open to changing the orientation, right, of the original image. Okay. So here I go. I have my 4-inch brush, and I just waxed my paper towel on my table, sorry. But that looks kind of cool. Okay. So this is my big 4-inch brush in the wax medium. Can everybody see? I want you guys to, oh shit. I want you to see. Is that better? I want you to be able to see the palette, right? Okay. So here's the 4-inch brush. I had to dip it on its side a little bit. I usually go this, and then I go flip it over, and I'm gonna go straight down. Okay. And the reason that I like to do that right over my subject matter is that it gives me a really nice smooth line over this like what I'm going to call the window to the subject matter, right? Which is the mannequin body, right? So this is like my main subject. Okay. So I can, if I want to do another smooth area, I could pick like this flower, right? And the reason that I'm not pouring on this is because I don't pour on paper. Okay. Your paper just can't really sustain that much weight. Okay. Now I'm going to use a smaller brush and I'm going to just brush however I like, brush how I feel like. And when I brush like this, I'm creating texture, right? Because the longer I'm brushing, I'm kind of using the bristles to grain, scratch, groove, whatever word you want to use, right? I'm moving the wax and I'm getting a very, and I can continue to add, right? You can continue to add, right? So like the more I add, the thicker I get, the blurrier, right? The underneath gets. Now I could also think in a minute about some stencil texture, right? And so what I'm going to think about is, because I use this dress in here, I'm going to think about sort of reestablishing this dress form. Now, when I do a layer of encaustic medium like this, I consider it pretty optional if you want to fuse right now. You could absolutely fuse lightly with the heat gun. So if you want to take a time out and fuse lightly with the heat gun, you can. If you don't want to get rid of any of the texture, you're just going to kind of lightly fuse. And when you're fusing like this, you're just looking for that little glow. You're just looking for that little glow. You're not melting anything. You're not disturbing any of the texture. You're just kind of giving it a once over. Okay. And I'm pretty happy with it, right? So I feel like I have very smooth right here, exactly where I want it. I have more texture happening over here and on the sides and coming in. So what I'm going to think about next is sort of reestablishing this A line of this skirt, right? So I'm going to make the mannequin stand out and have a skirt. So I'm going to go and grab a nice piece of lace that I can use as my skirt. And I'm going to add another layer of encaustic medium. Hang on. So this is a technique that works really well for me. And it's actually building a skirt in tiers. Rebecca, can you do me a favor and climb up there and grab my mom's, it's the green one. So I think that skirts in wax look the best when they're pieced together horizontally or vertically, okay? So it's not like I take one big triangular piece of lace and make the skirt. I try to suggest it as if it's like flowing. So I either go horizontally, right? Or I go vertically in panels. Does that make sense? Because I like to feel like it's not stagnant. I want there to be, I feel like movement is easier to describe, okay? And then I could also reattach my flower. No, not that one. That's not a prom dress. That's an evening gown. Yeah, it's on the end on the right. It's a light green one with the, yeah, that one, yeah. I'm just gonna show you guys this dress for fun because I think that the way it's constructed is nice to look at because it's kind of how I think about making stuff when I wax. And I just love this dress so much. All right, so wait, I'm gonna pin. Okay, so hold up. So do you guys see how this one is put together, right? So it's put together in sections and it just like, it has a lot of ability to move, right? It's semi-translucent and so I think about like this dress when I'm painting encaustic dresses. So these ridges are going, and there's so much like excitement to it. These are going horizontally. So I'm gonna try to construct this horizontal. Now, I'm gonna take you back to my, okay. So here I go. Now these, I could do both. I'm gonna do both the skirt and I'm gonna do a few more encaustic stencils on this, right? Because I did the gesso stencil, but I'm gonna do just a little bit more. All right, so here we go. So I'm just gonna brush the wax on here, right? And I go wider. I always go bigger than I need, right? Because I could always take it back, right? So I wanna be able to take it back. Also, did you see how I'm like tapping the brush and fairly hard? And I even like to go outside the lines, right? So here's one. Oh, that looks beautiful. Okay. And then I'm gonna overlap it, squish it a little bit, right? Wrinkle it. And I'm gonna go 2. I could have let that cool just a little bit longer. And then look, I'm gonna go wider, right? Because at the bottom, it's gonna go wider. So I'm gonna go wider. And again, this is all wax medium, right? Now I could be using encaustic if I wanted to commit to a color, and I'm gonna do one more. So this will be the widest, right? All right, so I'm gonna do one more, and I'm gonna go all the way over here. All right, so this is like getting pretty heavy on the layers. Now I'm also gonna do, but I love the way it went over. Like now this is not as prominent, right? So the tree kind of went underneath. I'm gonna do a couple more flower stencils, and then I'm gonna start painting. I'm gonna go grab a flower stencil that I like. Hold on one second. I wish I had. Okay, so this is going to be tricky because I don't really have a magnolia flower stencil. So I could go with this one, right? Which I kind of like. I kind of like the shape of this flower. Can you guys see it? So I tend to use this one a lot. I don't want to go this big, right? This is too big. Although I do really like that flower. This is too liney. I don't like that flower. This is too vertical, right? Vertical, it's too up and down. Now, this is pretty good though, right? Because this is a little bit like the shape of the magnolia. And do you remember yesterday when I drew the shape of the magnolia? Remember how I was talking about understanding the shape of your flower, right? So like if you're, working with a tulip, it's going to be, petals that are, it's going to kind of be this shape, right? So the magnolia, it's kind of like these, like dog ear petals, right? So they're kind of teardroppy, which makes me think of this one. So also I can sort of think about the direction that I want to go. So these branches are going up and these flowers are coming out. So I could go, I think this way. I think that way, back that way, right? Somebody agreeing with me? So I'm going to put a couple in it. Now, if I want, I can start thinking about encaustic paint, okay? I technically should fuse this layer of the skirt here. So I'm just going to give that a little fuse. And there's definitely going to need some scraping back to happen because this is getting very complicated. But I'm just going to keep going with the complicated until I kind of hit a wall, and then I'm going to start going back. So I'm going to make a nice, like, I have this beautiful, like, plummy color, which I love. I'm going to put these when I like that. Okay, so here I am using the encaustic paint. This is encaustic paint. From the Wax Snap, right? And it's a very neutral color, right? So here it goes. Okay, so that's one I could do. And I'm going to do them like they're falling, right? So these flowers are falling. And I'm going to repeat the same one, right? So I'm going to repeat the same one. Now I could start to think about changing the color of the paint because I'm going down. So if I'm getting darker as I'm going down, I could think about adding a darker color paint here. So I added a little bit of brown, and then I also added a little bit of gray. And if I want to make this paint more translucent, I'm going to add wax medium to it. I could also, I'm gonna switch brushes actually. I'm gonna use a little bit of a smaller brush. So I darkened my color of my paint, and I just added like a little bit of a mauve, like a red to it. And it looks pretty. Now this is pretty opaque, so I'm just gonna keep going. Now, if I want my stencil to be stiffer, I'm going to wait a second, right? And if I really want it to be even sharper, I'm gonna take the palette knife over the stencil and sharpen it up by sort of moving this wax over it and into it. Okay, so this should give
That's
me,
very cool.
yeah, so this should give me, and I'm also, did you see how I was kind of blending the wax? So I kind of mixed the colors, and I also have some grit. I have encaustic gesso on this stencil, so I kind of added some grit in there too. Okay, so that's kind of cool. It has like this funky little frame on it. All right, but I'm starting to really like this sort of like falling, and I'm sort of able to sort of now tell a story too, that there's wind blowing and these magnolia buds are going this way, but then they're getting blown down over the dress, right? So I'm gonna do one more of these buds right here on top of the bottom of the dress. And I'm gonna go darker color, right? Paint it with a little bit darker wax. I can go even darker by adding like a darker color. And I'm gonna add a little bit of wax medium. And I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so here I go. And it's really like a darker, oh, that's pretty. It's like a really pretty dark kind of red. Okay.
Kind of out of frame.
Say that again.
You're out of frame
Yeah.
for a lot.
I'm
You
out
could
of,
go back to overhead. That would be good.
how can I be out of frame? My brush is, oh, this is out of frame. This flower is out of, oh, I see.
To the right.
My stand doesn't go any taller, you guys.
But now it's worse. So
Slide it to your right.
there you go. That way. Yeah.
Oh, that's out of frame on my computer. Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Rebecca,
some people looking at the overhead and some people looking at your computer. I pinned your overhead.
my overhead is pinned for everybody. That's what
Oh.
it says. My
I
overhead,
have it beside you.
my overhead is pinned for everybody. That's what my computer says, is that my overhead is pinned. Now, my overhead is spotlit for everybody. That's what it says. Spotlit for
Now I
everybody.
got it now.
Now it is.
There it is.
Oh,
Now it is.
okay.
Yeah, got it now.
Thanks.
Great. Sure. My God, please make sure you're getting what you want. Okay. So again, like I'm going to scrape a little bit with this palette knife, right? Not a razor blade. Oh my God, no. And not a pottery tool. So you can really see how filled your, and you can really move this wax around, right? You really want to work this stencil. Okay, so you want it to be flush. You want the wax to be flush with the top edges of the stencil, right? And you really want it to color. Now you can always go back in, right? And you can sort of hand paint in the stencil, right? So I could add another color in here. All right. And then again, I can blend it by using the palette knife, right? And if it gets a little gummy on you, just ignore, tell it what you want it to do. You're the boss. Right?
You'd mentioned that gesso, Leah. Do you ever intentionally add gesso to that to stiffen it up a bit?
No, I don't ever add gesso to encaustic medium ever, or to encaustic wax. Never. I only put it underneath or on the board, and then I don't ever use it again.
Okay.
If I wanted to add white, I would use white pigment stick or white encaustic paint. I would never add gesso on top of encaustic or encaustic medium ever. Okay, so what I really like is that I did do a really nice gradient of these flowers cascading down, right? So this one is the one that I technically am saying in my imagination is popping off of this branch. And then this one's falling this way. This one fell a little bit this way. This one's falling back that way. This one's repeating. Now I could flip my stencil just to make it a little bit more interesting and have one sort of falling back, or I could do another one, but maybe right here. But I'm also curious about this other little guy. So I think I'm going to go to this other little guy, right? So he could be the one that's sort of the background. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. So if I go back, I love this color I made on the hot plate. I hope you guys can see that. It's so pretty, this color. Did I just freeze? I just froze. What? Yeah, it's frozen. Hey.
You're back. Okay.
Okay. So, Melissa, you're the star now, Melissa. Yay, Melissa's the star. Don't eat your notebook. Don't eat your notebook. They'll want to take you, it'll be like Curious George and the puzzle piece. Okay. So I'm hoping you guys can see this beautiful color here. I don't know because the light looks weird.
Leah,
What?
Leah,
What?
can you do the overhead again? You're back on the side view.
Me too.
There you go.
Higher. You have to go higher and then down. Higher. You have to go like over the pan if you want to do that. Higher, as high as it goes. Yeah. And then over. Okay, so what I'm talking about here on the hot plate is again like having sort of a gradient of color. So I'm gonna go for one. I love this like red that I ended up with. And again, like I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but this is how I painted the same on with the pigment sticks. Was I had a color and then I mixed it with a couple other colors, and I have a lighter version and a darker version, right? And I don't stick this dirty brush in the wax medium pot. If I want to extend it, I take the wax medium out of this pot, right? So now by adding more wax medium, I'm extending the paint or diluting it, making it more translucent, okay? Also, like if I wanted it to be lighter pink, I would have to really clean this brush, right? Because it has these other colors. So if I want to stay lighter, I'd have to clean the brush. All right, so I'm going to try this little flower now. And I like it because it's like very translucent, light, like pink. And I'm having a little trouble getting it to, right? So sometimes the wax too, you have to remember that it needs to cool. It kind of wants to act out on you a little bit. So you got to be the boss. And you can put some pressure on this, right? And then when you gather it up, you can did you see I did that? It's like spackling, right? Okay, so now it's smooth and then I can pull it up. Okay, so then I got that one there. So I'm gonna go sort of reverse. I'm gonna go to these other spaces. So here's this flower. I'm gonna put one of them here and I'm gonna put one of them here, and then we're gonna take a break. And when we come back, we're gonna paint this with pan pastels and pigment sticks. So I'm gonna put one here. Also flip your stencil, you guys, right? So here I'm gonna go to the darker color. And look, I can even like tone my stencil, right? Like by putting darker palette knife, right? So brush it on, palette knife. Now you don't have to palette knife, right? If you don't palette knife, you're just gonna get a rougher stencil. Okay, so I'll do one without the palette knife, okay? Okay, so there's palette knife. I'm gonna do one, I'm gonna flip the stencil. It's gonna go back this way. I'm gonna do one even darker. I keep saying darker, but I keep saying darker, but it just keeps going redder. But that's okay. All right, so darker. I guess darker, redder is darker. Okay. So, and I'm gonna do one without using the palette knife, and that's nice and dark. Okay, so here we go. So here's no palette knife. I'm gonna pull it up, and it's fine. Now look, I could take this dark red, and I could kind of go a little bit around these other flowers, right? Because I know this is like what I'm considering the darkest color. So that's like nice too, right? And I also, if I use a color, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm kind of stingy about my colors. I don't want to wipe this color away. So I'm just gonna start to think about where I can put this color, especially because it's so beautiful. I could add more wax medium to it to make it more translucent. And I can just use up what I have on my palette, right? And here's the lighter shade of it. I can put that over here, right? But that's kind of nice, right? And I feel like I'm just getting that sort of reflective light quality of this color all over. All right, so
Nice.
I'm just gonna stop with that for now. It's 2 o'clock on the nose. Like I couldn't have done that better if I tried. And we're gonna take a little break, right? And when we come back, I'm gonna fuse this, scrape it back a little bit, and then try to like organize it with hand painting it with pigment sticks and pan pastels, okay? I will do the fusing of the pan pastels, and then we're gonna switch to my big piece, right? I think what I'm gonna try to do too is I can eat real quick my sandwich. I'm gonna take these and wax them. And what I'm looking at is like, what is this side gonna be dark or is this side gonna be light? So if this side is light, that means she's facing this way. But if this side's dark, that means she's facing this way. So I have 2, right? So I'm gonna, and I'll show you those when we come back from lunch, okay? Okay. All right, so I'll send you the link to the 3 o'clock Zoom, all right? Yeah,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
okay, awesome. I'll see you in an hour. Okay, have a good break. Okay,
Okay, you too.
okay, thanks, bye.